So let's talk about the definition of disability for Social Security. And this is just a high-level overview. We could spend a long time talking about how Social Security makes a decision about disability. But generally, a disability is first substantial. So it results in the inability to work at a substantial gainful activity. Now on this slide, if you look in the corner, there's a box that reads SGA 2019. SGA stands for Substantial Gainful Activity, and you might hear that term quite a bit. We also write 2019 because SGA changes, usually every year. And so for 2019, for a person who is not blind, if their earnings are $1,220 gross per month or more, they're considered performing Substantial Gainful Activity, or SGA. And if the person is blind and their earnings are $2,040 or more per month, they would be considered performing SGA as well.
Scott, why is there a difference between non-blind and blind SGA?
Yeah, that's a good question. What I've heard is actually due to the lobbyists for people who are blind. And what we'll see is that there are work incentives that are available for people who are blind that are actually very advantageous to that group of people. And so I just heard they had really strong lobbyists. Did you hear that same story?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. And I think that you'll notice as we go along that there are other benefits that being considered blind by Social Security's definition really bring to individuals.
Right.
So it's kind of an interesting thing, these differences.
That's right. So moving on, a disability which is substantial, and then also it needs to be considered terminal or long-term. So terminal means that it will result in death, or it's considered long-term, so it has lasted or can be expected to last for a continuous period of not less than 12 months. Now, these definitions of disability apply at the time of application for all the disability benefits, but when someone receives SSI, the rules change a little bit. They no longer consider that part about substantial gainful activity, and that's an important piece that we're going to talk more about later on in this training.
So Social Security has two disability benefit programs, and the first one that we're going to be covering is the one that was established in 1954, which is that Title II program, and it covers Social Security Disability Insurance, or SSDI. It also covers the Social Security for an adult child of an individual who is retired, deceased, or disabled, and that is known as Social Security Childhood Disability Benefits, or SSCDB, and that previously was known as Social Security for the Disabled Adult Child. Well, we bring that up primarily because there are certain things in the world of Medicaid where they still use that term, SSDAC or DAC. So we'll probably hold that and keep that in mind as we move towards talking about medical benefits in a future module. Now, some people call these Title II benefits SSA, or regular Social Security. Have you heard them do the same?
Yes.
And usually that's a great pointer that they're not talking about supplemental security income, or SSI. People usually know exactly what that benefit is, and they will call it out separately, the supplemental security income. And that's very different than the terms that they use for that Title II SSDI or SSCDB benefit. And you know, Scott, I didn't mention earlier, but under Title II, there is also Social Security for widows or widowers who have a disability. And we have not spoken about that, and we probably will not cover that a great deal in this series because it's such a small window of time in which somebody is eligible for that benefit. But it also falls under those Title II benefits. For this session, though, we are going to be focused solely on Title XVI SSI, or Supplemental Security Income. How do people qualify for SSI? Because it's a general tax fund program, it does not tap into monies that are in the Social Security Trust Fund. It is defined for people who have limited income and limited resources. In other words, it's for people who are aged, blind, or disabled, who are of limited income or limited resources and don't have a long work history, or someone else who has a work history, that they could tap into those Social Security Trust Fund benefits for. So, limited income, we're going to talk more about what that means, and then resources of less than $2,000 for an individual, or for a couple, it's resources of less than $3,000. So, in other words, there's really not twice the resources for a married couple. There's just 1.5 times the resources.
Right. So, Susan, I have a question.
Sure.
I found that people often get confused about income and resources. How are those two different?
Right. So I think probably the easiest illustration would be that if somebody gives me a bunch of money in the middle of the month, that when they give me the money, when I receive it, it's income. But as of the beginning of the very next month, very first moment of that very next month, if I'm retaining those dollars, then it is a resource, and it may count. It does count towards the resource limit, and it may make me ineligible for benefits.
So the resources are only looked at the first of the month.
Yes.
Okay.
And income is counted when it is received.
Got it.